you can see there at the top, we're going to be focusing pretty heavily today on finance and accounting. So Business Central, at its core, it is an accounting software, right? So that's its primary function. So today we will be focusing primarily on navigating Business Central. We'll actually focus on some Boyer agents today. So I'll show some agents that Boyer has built. I'll show general ledger, financial reporting, accounts receivable, and then accounts payable. And then if we have time towards the end, I'll show banking as well. But there are a lot of other modules that Business Central can support, right? So we're going to be focusing up at the top at finance and accounting, but there is also sales and marketing, fulfillment and delivery, purchasing and payables. So we will be touching on invoicing today. There's inventory. So if you have lot or serial tracking, Business Central can support that as well. Supply planning and availability, project management, service management, warehouse management, and manufacturing. So those are all just the out-of-the-box functionality or modules of Business Central. Service management and manufacturing does have premium pricing, but this is all out of the box of what Business Central can support. And Business Central can go even further than this. So I would if there's anything that you're interested in, I would take a screenshot or a note of this page just so you know what's available out of the box with Business Central. But Business Central can also support functionality much further beyond this through ISVs or independent software vendors. So if I need barcoding in my warehouse, that's something that Business Central can support as well. Or if I need quality management or EDI, there are other kind of add-ons or ISVs that Business Central can support through separate vendors, and it all looks like it's just built directly into Business Central. All right, so here we are in Business Central. As you can see, it is a cloud-based, browser-based ERP system. So I'm using Microsoft Edge to log in. You could use any internet browser. It doesn't have to be Microsoft-based, right? So as you can see, I do have a URL up here, and I have my Business Central environment bookmarked, so it's very easy for me to log in with my Microsoft credentials. And then as Business Central is a Microsoft product, I do have access to the rest of the Microsoft ecosystem or the rest of those apps directly up here. So I'll call out some of those out-of-the-box integrations today. I'll show you Excel. We'll go through an approval workflow today. I'll show you Teams and Power BI as well. So we'll actually see some of that native functionality today. And then with Business Central, you do get access to one production environment and 3 sandboxes. So what does that mean? Right now, I'm in a company called Business Central Immersion in a production environment. So if I pop this open, we can see I'm in a production environment. I can have as many companies as I want within here. So for any of the companies that are on this call today that perhaps have intercompany, you could have many companies within your production environment. You could actually, like if I wanted to search for a company, if I wanted to look for my Cronus Canada, I could switch to that company or I could open it up in a new tab. So I can toggle between companies. I can have I can have multiple tabs of the same company open at the same time. I could do a split screen. I could have one company on one monitor and a separate one and a different one. So there's a lot of kind of nice functionality available as long as transacting in an internet-based ERP system, right? But I'm in, and that's Copilot. It's going to keep popping out for a bit. I'm in a production environment. I have a lot of companies in here. And then if I scroll down, we can see I also have sandboxes. So sandboxes are used for UAT or user acceptance testing. So it's critical to test transactions, make sure that everything is hitting your general ledger correctly before you go live. So that's kind of what we would use those sandboxes for, or if any sort of development may need to be done. All right. And then I'll kind of touch on Copilot. It will keep popping up. So there's Copilot in Business Central. Here I can ask for data within my company. So here I asked what is the balance in the rent expense GL account. So I actually asked Copilot for this. It gave me some drill back. So it says, yep, it's $54,700. I can drill directly into my GL account card and I can see, yep, actually that is the balance that's the current balance. I can drill in further and I can see my general ledger entries that actually make up that amount. And then I can also ask Copilot kind of general questions. So Copilot can provide, if I asked here, how do I create a new GL account, it can give me those instructions. And it can also provide Microsoft Learn articles as well. So Microsoft has very heavily documented Business Central. It is well documented. There are many Microsoft Learn articles, many chat forms, lots of documentation out there. So if there's something that's really quick that you maybe don't want to get a consultant involved for, you certainly don't have to do that either. So that's native, that's Copilot inside of Business Central. I will touch on agents that Boyer has built as well. So Microsoft has built agents. I won't touch on those today, but there are also agents that Boyer has built. And Boyer has built agents that can query data from Business Central directly into Copilot or Teams. So I'll show you that. If you are not familiar with what an agent is, I'll kind of cover that briefly. So an agent is Copilot that is built for a specific purpose. So I build an agent to kind of help me automate certain tasks or to just help me make my life easier for something that I'm doing regularly. So Boyer has created agents where I can query data from Business Central directly into, for example, Teams. So if here's one, for example, called Account Analyzer. And here I can actually ask Account Analyzer, what is the budget versus actuals for a specific GL account? Or I could ask for the GL account description. And Account Analyzer is actually able to pull that for me directly inside of Teams. So we see this being helpful for companies who maybe not everyone needs direct access to Business Central. Maybe they only need to view data. Maybe some of your users actually step away from their desk pretty frequently and they just need to get some data out without having to go back into Business Central. But this is Account Analyzer. So I do want to show too, it can handle dimensions or kind of financial tags in Business Central. So here I asked what is the balance of a different GL account coded specifically to the sales department. And Account Analyzer is actually able to pull that out for me as well. And then it can handle date ranges. So here I asked for the balance of a specific account coded to the sales department as of a specific date. And it was able to get that out for me as well. So that's Account Analyzer. It can handle dimensions and it's more for kind of financial reporting. So for anyone who's using project as a dimension or business line or customer, that is all kind of that can be handled through Account Analyzer. And then I'll touch on some of the other agents that Boyer has created. I know these aren't as applicable for every company on this call, but we do also have Smart Stock. So that is for inventory. So if you have inventory at specific warehouses or at multiple locations in your Business Central company, this is how you can kind of query that into Teams to say, hey, how many of this item description do I have on hand? Smart Stock was able to pull that for me. At this specific location or warehouse, how much of this item do I have on hand? Smart Stock was able to pull that for me too. So if I need to query inventory by location, that is kind of where Smart Stock comes into play and where Boyer has helped automate that. Great. And then lastly, there is also the Boyer Central agent. So I'll kind of scroll up here. So here, I actually connect. So I connect through all of these agents. I have to reconnect through Business Central or through Outlook if I'm using those integrations to make sure that these agents are supporting and respecting my permissions. So if I don't have permissions to see or create data in Business Central, I have the same permissions using these agents. So if I can't query some data, I can't see it in Teams either. Right? So here I asked what are our top 5 customers. I had to reconnect to authenticate using my Microsoft credentials. And then here the Boyer Central agent could pull my top 5 customers by balance. So I can see my top 5 customers. I can check on if a specific sales order has shipped. I can see my package tracking information here actually. And then here I asked for the agent to email Caden and ask him to follow up on this order. So there is also an integration with Outlook that the Boyer Central agent can support. And it actually kind of created a new email body for me in my Outlook email so that I could review this. Maybe something needs to be modified. For example, they thought his name was Chris. So I could change that. But it's just nice. It saves me some time so I don't have to type it out. And I'll kind of open up some of these prompts too on the Business Central agent. So I can see a vendor list, I can see a customer list, I can see my aged AR, aged AP, and then for those of you who are using sales and purchase orders, we can see all of that as well. So I can pull all of that. I can send emails, I can create new records, all through Teams, supporting the same permissions that I have in Business Central. So I'll pause here. I know that was a lot of information. Do we have any questions on agents, or anything about anything I've just touched on?
I don't have a question, Margot, but I did just see that Tori put in the chat that this is a very cool feature. So one thing I did want to call out that while we're primarily demoing out of the box functionality Business Central, Boyer Central is proprietary to Boyer. So if you are evaluating partners as well as your solution, this is not something you would find with another partner today, just for clarification.
Great call out. Thanks, Addie.
Thank you.
All right, perfect. I'll minimize that. I'm back in Business Central now, and I will kind of touch more on user navigation here. So this is what my home screen looks like. You'll kind of hear me touch on that, talk about my home screen. You'll see me navigate back to this page pretty frequently today. And this is what my home screen looks like due to the role that I have in Business Central. So if I come up to my settings, we can see that I'm logged in as a business manager. So if I select these ellipses here, we can see there are a number of other available roles out of the box. And I'll just pause here because I know people do like to see the other roles. So I could be an accountant, I could be an AP admin, I could be an AR admin, I could be the administrator of users and security, right? I could be a manufacturing or an inventory manager, project manager. So there are a number of other roles available to me. And if I switch to one of those other roles, then my home screen will look a lot different because I care about different things. So instead of seeing all things related to cash as a business manager, if I switch to the accountant role, I would see things more related to like the chart of accounts and more accounting related features. All right. And there's a level of permissions nested beneath that. So I can't go and switch my role and then delete out the chart of accounts. So there's role-based and user-based permissions in Business Central as well. Okay. So I would love to get more into navigating the system now. So I have some drop downs. As a business manager, I care about all things cash. So I have some drop downs. I have my finance drop downs. I can see my general journals. I could see my GL budgets if I have one. Under cash management, I have some options there. I have my sales and purchasing drop downs. So I have some shortcuts available to me based on what Business Central thinks a business manager would care about. But if I want to bookmark or save anything else to my home screen, I can certainly do that. So everywhere in Business Central, I can personalize my screen. So this goes for my home screen. This goes for all of my list pages. I can personalize my screen. And maybe my payment reconciliation journal, I want to show this. So I could show this, and when I click done, it's going to save that so I can see that every single time. Or I want to see transfer orders, or I want to hide something. So maybe I want to hide this. When I click done, it's going to save that, and that will be personalized just for my user. Okay, so I'm going to use this. I'll use the customer option and we'll go into my customer list. So this is a list page in Business Central. This is all of the customers that I have in this specific Business Central company. Not very many as it's all demo data, right? But this is a list page. So you can think of it very similarly to Excel. If I wanted to sort descending on the customer number, I could do that. If I wanted to save filters, I could do that. So we can see I have a filter saved here to only view customers who actually have a balance. So I can see that. I can actually drill into the balance due, and we can see, all right, this is what they owe us. So yep, this is red. So it's past due. This is kind of a nice visual indicator. So they owe us $2,500. So I can actually come in and see that this is past due. I'll come out of that filter. And then there are some integrations too. So I'll hit this little export button in the top right. I could open this in Excel. I could dump it out to do some further data analysis. That goes for any list page. So that's in a journal entry, that's in my chart of accounts, that's in my general ledger entries. So I could really, I can do some nice kind of data analysis through Business Central. Or I could share to Teams. So there's an integration through Teams if I wanted to send this to a coworker, for example. If I wanted to send my customer list to Caden, I could send that to him, and he'll actually get a notification from me shortly. And he'll probably be a little bit confused in about an hour as to why I sent this to him. But I could send that to Caden. And then there's also a nice edit in Excel feature. So I would love to show this as well. This is something that's very powerful. So I can also lock this down with permissions to make sure that not everyone has the permissions to be able to do this. But what Edit in Excel does is it pushes and pulls data between Business Central and Excel. So if I want to push data directly into Business Central from Excel, I could do that. So maybe this salesperson switched, Helena Ray got a promotion and Jim Olive has taken over. I can actually update that in Business Central and I can publish that directly back in without having to be super technologically savvy. I can just mass update a lot of records with the click of one button. And there is also validation. So if I try to change this balance or try to change any sort of posted data, I can't change that. All right. So I'll X out. I'll actually go back into Business Central. I updated this salesperson code directly through Excel, and I could refresh my screen here, or I'll just kind of hit a little shortcut on my keyboard and we'll see that this salesperson code will refresh. So every time I click my company name, it's going to take me back to my home screen as well. And then I would love to show, lastly, before I get into actually showing some of the financial things that everyone came here to see, I'll show some Power BI reports as well. So there are Power BI reports that Microsoft has created that are embedded directly in Business Central. So you could connect your data to these. I'm going to be showing the financial dashboard. Again, 75 out of the box dashboards that Business Central has released, or that Microsoft has released. And I'm just showing the financial dashboard, but there are options for inventory valuation, accounts receivable, accounts payable. There are project dashboards. There are recurring billing dashboards. So there are a number of other dashboards that are available as well. But I like this financial overview one. So that's what we'll be, and that's the focus of today, right? So I have some nice KPIs here up at the top. I have my revenue, my net profit. I can see my top customers and vendors by balance. I can see my return on assets by month. So I can see here to my net profit margin by fiscal year and month, my asset turnover ratio. And I'll just kind of click through just so you guys can get your own understanding of how these work too. So I have an income statement by month with some drill back, so I could actually drill into each account here. Same with my balance sheet account, so I have drill back here into the data. Business Central can store budgets, so it's not going to create your budgets for you. It's not a budgeting tool. I do want to call that out, but it can store budgets. And so if I have a budget that I'm storing in Business Central, I can have some analysis here as well. I have some liquidity KPIs as well. I have a profitability dashboard. I have a liabilities dashboard, my EBITDA, my average collection period, and then aged receivables and aged payables as well. So I do have drill back here too. So if I have aging buckets, I can see my aging buckets, my aged payables as well. And then my GL entries. And then lastly, my detailed vendor and customer ledger entries. So I can see all of that through dashboards. Any questions there? All right, perfect. So from here, I do want to get more into, I'm going to start with the general ledger. So we're going to start with my chart of accounts, and I'll show you what the chart of accounts looks like in Business Central. So I'll go to my chart of accounts, a little shortcut there. I don't think I actually clicked it. Or I'm having connection problems. I'll refresh. There we go. So this is my demo chart of accounts. We would surely import your actual chart of accounts, but as you can see, it's just the main account. So I use dimensions for the rest. So I just have my main GL account. I don't have those long GL account strings. And as you can see, I have different account types. So I could have a heading. So these are my balance sheet accounts, and I can have begin totals and end totals. So everything under my total cash account is summing everything from cash all the way down to my total cash. So I could have that here. I have a balance and a balance at date. So this is kind of like a mini trial balance. So I could actually drill in and see my balance at a specific date. I could drill in, I could see the entries that make that up. And then I have kind of search functionality within here. So maybe I want to see my rent expense account, I can actually drill in. And I'll show you guys how that's kind of set up in here. So I have my main account. I don't have the concept of like a really long GL string in Business Central. I use dimensions for the rest. I have my GL account name. I have whether it's an income statement or balance sheet account. I have my broad account category here. And then I have a concept called account subcategory. These are important. They drive the out-of-the-box financial reports. So I create my GL account subcategories and I create the order they're in and all of the accounts that go into them. So these drive the out-of-the-box financial reports so that when I go to create a new GL account or I have to change something, it's going to update my financial reports for me automatically. Okay. And then here, I just want to point out too, you can turn off direct posting so that your subledgers balance correctly at month or year end as well. Okay, perfect. So you'll see up here, I'm going to use my global search. So instead, I could navigate back to my home screen. I can use those shortcut drop downs, or I can use my global search here. So I'm going to search for dimensions. So I could also search the entire system using that search button or that global search. So I'll go to my dimensions next. I have a lot of dimensions in this demo environment, right? So most likely your company would not have this many, but I use my dimensions for financial reporting. So these are like tags that I can tag on specific entries or on specific transactions to flow all the way through to the GL. So we'll be focusing probably on department the most because that's the most universal example, right? But I don't have to use a department. I could have, if I'm a cleaning service, for example, and I have different locations or sites that I clean, I could have location or site be one of my dimensions that I care about. I could have business line be a dimension that I care about. I could have job or project or customer or client or product category. Like if I sell different products, I need to keep track of whether something is like ammunition or cleaning supplies. I could keep track of that as well. There's more. So sales channel, brand, or manufacturer. We see all of these and we're implementing this every day. So don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions on this. But I'll stick with department because it's pretty universal. So department is my dimension, and then I can have different dimension values. So of my departments, I have administration, I have certifications, I have events, I have HR, I have IT. So I can have a number of dimension values within these dimensions, and it's easy for me to just come in and add a new dimension. Like I could do that with a click of a button, right? I'll delete that because I don't actually want that in here. And then I can have different rules for dimensions too. So if I always buy IT equipment from a specific vendor, I could default that in. Or if I want to force user interaction to have someone, if they post an invoice, if they have to code it to this department, I can have rules around that to say, hey, you need to code this to a specific dimension or department, right? Okay. Any questions on dimensions? We can also, we use them for financial reporting, which I'll get into after this, but are there any questions yet? Okay, perfect. I'll go all the way back to my home screen here. And then under my finance dropdown or shortcut, I'll go to financial reporting. So we're going to touch on some of the out-of-the-box financial reports, and I'll show you how the report writer works. So there is kind of a nice, simple report writer option in Business Central, but I'll show you how you do that. So today we're going to use this M-income financial report. So the way that this works is I build the rows and I build the columns. So I can copy rows, I can copy columns, I can change small things about them and reuse them. So it is a very kind of automated, easy financial report writer to learn. So we'll take a look first at my row definition. So I'm going to edit my row definition here. I'm not going to make a copy because I won't actually change anything, but I choose the rows that I want to see in this financial report. So if these are my rows, for example, these are the GL accounts that are that kind of total into them. I can see my row types by net change, balance at date, or beginning balance. I can bold or italicize or do some formatting here. I can indent them. So it's pretty simple to learn. That's how I create the rows in this financial report, right? So this is an example of like a simplified income statement. And then I also pick the columns. So I choose which columns I want to see. And this is an actual versus budget. So I will look at the columns here. So I will have a month-to-date actual column, month-to-date budget, variance, year-to-date, actual and budget, and then variance. And as you can see, I actually have some formulas in here, so I can do some calculations. Right? And now I'll go ahead and run this. But first, I do want to show. So you can also export this to Excel as a template, and then import it back in if there's things that you want to change about a specific financial report. If you have a lot of columns, like if you have, maybe this is by, you have a lot of entities or companies, you could dump this to Excel if it doesn't fit your format too. So you can see this in Excel. You can see this in PDF form, but I'm just going to do it in PDF. So I'll run this. Business Central is very date sensitive, so I run this for a specific date, starting and ending date, and I'm comparing this to a specific budget that I imported. And I want to point out here, so I can filter this by my dimensions. So if I want to see this for a specific department, I could filter this by department as well. But I'll run it wide open, and I'll kind of show you the way that this report looks. So here I have my month-to-date actual, budget, variance, and then same for my year-to-dates. So that's the way that I built my columns. And then over here on the left, this is the way that I built my rows. So I'll kind of scroll through. So it looks exactly the way that I built my columns and rows. Perfect. Next, I'll move on to the general journal then. I'm sure everyone's interested in how to post a journal entry. That's pretty universal as far as accounting systems go, right? So here, I'm going to use, I'll use my global search to go there. So I can search for gender, and it can tell what I'm looking for, right? So I can have different batches in here too. That goes for really any journal. So I can have different batches. I can be working separately in these. But I do want to show you, you can copy and paste directly from Excel. So if I want to use Excel and this is what I want to post as a journal entry, I could copy this directly from Excel. As long as my columns line up with the columns in Business Central, it's very easy for me to just copy from Excel, and then I can paste it directly into Business Central. So that saves me a lot of time, and I really like that. And then here we can see I'm accruing for rent by department. So I can actually, oops, and I don't want to click too fast, but here we can see that that's what I'm doing for this specific journal entry. And for any journal entry or any sort of document that I'm posting in Business Central, I can always preview post, which is also very nice for me. I like the option to preview post. So I can see that to see how that's actually going to impact my general ledger. So I can actually see that. I can see the amounts. I can see what accounts are going to get hit with which posting dates. So I can always do that. And so I think that's nice to actually see how it's going to impact me financially. And then my last step there would just be to actually post the journal entries. The other thing I kind of get questions on pretty frequently is if you are a very traditional accountant, you can post a journal entry that way. So you could do a line for a debit and a line for a credit. Or if you just want to post something as one line, there's also a column for my balancing account. So I could have so I could have a balancing account type with a GL account or like a customer that I'm balancing against. So I don't have to do the traditional accounting way of a debit and a credit, but if I want to, I can do that. So just wanted to call that out as well. Okay. All right, next I'll kind of hop over to the AR side of things. So I'll create a sales invoice. So I'll go to my sales drop down and we'll go to sales invoices. So this is a list of all of the open sales invoices that I have in Business Central. And again, I can set up filters. So if I want to see what's due, then I can have a filter saved for that. If I want to see what's ready to invoice or what's been partially invoiced, I can certainly set up filters for that. So it's very nice for me to kind of see my invoice list that way. And that's same for sales orders or purchase orders. I have some nice views in there to see what's like partially shipped or partially been received. So I can do that for those options as well. So I'll actually come in here, I'll just create a new sales invoice, pretty straightforward, and I'll kind of look at this drop down. So maybe I don't know my customer number, I can actually search in here. So I can search for Trey, and I don't need to know any numbers. I can use some nice search functionality there. All right. So here, I have my customer, and then let's say maybe we're invoicing them for some kind of services. So I'm just gonna type in services. I don't know the GL account number either. I don't have to. So maybe we're just using other services in this specific scenario. We're gonna invoice them for quantity of 1, and maybe this is $5,000 worth of services, right? So this is a very simple sales invoice with just one line, right? But I do want to show you, it's going to default in a lot of information from my customer record. So based on my customer record, it knows the sell to address. I can have a salesperson default in by customer. If I want to change this contact, I could switch the contact to a different one. Down here, I could switch my shipping and billing information as well. And then my payment terms and my payment method will default in based on the customer. So if it's net 30, I could have that be my payment terms. And if they pay me via check or bank account, I can default that in as well. All right. And then of course lastly, if I wanted to actually like post this invoice, same thing, I could preview post to see how this will impact me financially, or I could come in and I could actually just post this invoice. All right, so once I post an invoice, it falls off of once I fully invoice, right, it's gonna fall off of my sales invoice list and post as a posted sales invoice. So now this is a posted document and it's a little bit harder to update. So here, now that this is a posted sales invoice, if I wanted to send this as a one-off, I could email this. So there is an integration through Outlook, of course. So if I wanted to email this to my customer, here, it's going to actually attach that sales invoice as a PDF. So this is something we modify these, so that's pretty standard. We would use your company's logo, right? We would use we could change or add any of these fields as you see fit. We could take away some information. And then if you do have your customers pay you via PayPal and they want to select a link to pay, we can certainly add that on too. So there is an integration through Outlook. Here I have just some email template here. So this could be modified too if you address your customers or your vendors differently. We could use your current email template as well. And then I could just send that email very, very easily. But I'll discard that. Another question we get, I'm going to go to my posted sales invoice list. You don't have to send them as a one-off. You can batch email them out as well. So I'll show you that because that is another question that we do get pretty frequently. So if I wanted to mass email these out, I could do a print and send. So I could send by email and I could mass send them out if I want to as well. Okay. I know I just went through sales invoicing pretty quickly. Are there any questions as far as sales invoices or emailing goes?
I see a question in the chat. Margot, Ryan, did you want to come off mute and talk through it? I'll read it out loud first, but it's, can you upload multiple sales invoices at once? Also, is there a way for the invoice to calculate sales tax automatically?
Yes, great questions. So yes, you can update multiple sales invoices at once. So that would be through a configuration package. That's what we call them in Business Central. It's like a CSV file import. I'm sure everyone's probably familiar with the CSV file. So yes, you can import multiple sales invoices at once through a configuration package. And then yes, I'll show you yes, sales taxes in Business Central. That is a great question. So first, I'll start by saying, so out of the box, sales tax calculations, it is by tax area and tax jurisdictions in Business Central. But we can also work with Avalara if you want your Avalara to calculate that for you. So if you are charging sales tax in many states, that's when we would recommend Avalara. But I will show kind of just out of the box tax areas in Business Central. So this specific example of this invoice, right, we can see the tax area is Miami, Florida. I can actually drill back further and we can see I have tax jurisdiction. So I have a tax amount for the state of Florida. Actually, it looks like there's no sales tax for Florida. I feel like I should have known that one, but here we go. So 1% for Dade County, that's the sales tax amount there. And then for Miami, there is a 1% sales tax. So it looks like that's 2%. So I'm guessing if I calculated, this is gonna be 2% of the total excluding tax. So that's how tax areas work out of the box in Business Central, is I'm calculating it at the jurisdiction level. But that's when you'd recommend Avalara. If that's too much, and you don't want to have to track it at that level, you don't have to do that either. There's also Avalara as an option.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Okay. At this point, I'm going to hop over. We're going to stay on the AR side of things, and I will show registering customer payments. So I'm going to use my global search for that again, and it's aptly named Register Customer Payments. And I have to type it in further, but there we go. Register customer payments. So these are all of my my invoices, right, that I can actually register customer payments for. So if I wanted to say, for example, I'll keep with trade research, I can say, yep, actually trade research did pay me this. If there's an external document number, like a check number, I could type that in as well. If I know that if I'm doing this for only trade research and I actually drilled into that customer card, I went back, I could filter this value. So maybe I just want to filter for trade research. Maybe they also paid this, this other invoice, or if they didn't fully pay, I can say, hey, maybe they only paid half of this. So I only received $800, and I could do it at that level too. So that's the way I could register customer payments. One thing I think that's nice is I could post them separately, or I could post as a lump sum. So I'll kind of show that. So if I want to preview posting payments, and I just have different bill to addresses for the specific customer, that's what's warning me about. So if I preview post this, not as a lump sum payment, I have 4 GL entries. So these are a debit and a credit per invoice, right? But if I want to post this as like a lump sum payment, the way that I would if I was doing like a bank deposit, then I could also preview post this as a lump sum. And it's only going to be 2 GL entries for the total dollar amount of both invoices. So I kind of like posting as a lump sum. I think it's nice to do at that level. So that's kind of how I would do that. But here I'm just going to say, yep, they paid both of these, and then I'm going to go ahead and post these as a lump sum payment. Right. So now I've registered those customer payments, and I can take the filter off too. Any questions there? All right, perfect. In that case, I'm going to hop over to the AP side of things, and I'll go to my purchasing shortcut drop down, and we can go to my purchase invoices. So there's a few concepts I'll touch on the purchase invoicing side. The first one that I want to touch on is just creating a purchase invoice, and we'll actually go through an approval workflow. So I'm going to go ahead by starting to just create a new purchase invoice. So we received an invoice from a vendor. And maybe here, again, I'm just going to do a click and choose for the vendor. Maybe it's my Fabricam vendor, for example. Actually, no, I'm going to use Boyer. I think Boyer's a vendor in here. So I'll use my Boyer vendor. It's maybe more applicable today, right? So here I'll pick my Boyer vendor. And let's say we got an invoice for consulting services, right? So I can put that in here and say, okay, I don't know the GL account, but I can type it in. I don't need to know it. It's a quantity for one, and maybe I got an invoice for $1,000. So I can type that all in if I'm interested in doing it manually. And then lastly, Business Central does require a vendor invoice number. So if I have to type in the vendor invoice number. So at that point, I could go through. Same thing, it's going to pull in a lot of information from my vendor records, the buy from address. If there's a purchaser code, that's going to default in for me. My due date will default in based on my payment terms. My payment terms and payment method will default in for me. So same with my tax area code, so we can see all of that. It's actually defaulted in from the customer record. And then I do want to show approvals. So approvals through Outlook, of course. So I'll go through all request approval so I can send an approval request. As you can see here, it says, yep, an approval request has been sent. So we can see the status change from open to pending approval. And then I can actually look at that. So I could look at the invoice. I could come to my approvals here. We can see that I actually went through and I sent this approval to Sue, right? So in this specific instance, maybe Sue's out of town, maybe she's not actually going to go ahead and approve this to me, I could delegate it to someone else. So I actually delegated this. She's not in town for me to approve it. So here I actually delegated it to myself so I could show you how the approvals work. So I delegated it to myself. So it's still in the status of pending approval because I haven't actually gone through and approved it yet. So I'll switch over here to my Outlook tab. And this is an example of what the email would look like that Sue or the approver gets. So I have a link directly to Business Central. So I could see a preview. I could, and I actually have to re-sign in through here. And here's the actual email that just went through. So here I have a link directly to that purchase invoice. I could go through and I could, and I actually did click it. So it's going to take me, the link is going to take me directly to this purchase invoice for me to approve it. So I could approve it, or add a comment and reject it or delegate it to another person. So that's one way I could do it. I could do it directly through a link through Outlook. I could do it on the mobile app on my phone. So there's a number of ways that I could do that. And then I also want to show, so I could approve it through here, or I could, on my home screen, there is kind of like a little shortcut too. So I'll go all the way back to my home page. I clicked that button to go to my home page. There's also a nice view as far as pending approvals. So I can see this from my home screen too. So I can see how many requests I've sent. I can see what I have to approve. So I could also come in at that point. I could see what's past due. I could see the dollar amounts. And so I could open the record from here to approve it this way too. So in this case, I'll actually come through. I'll approve it. We'll see that now it's in a released status. And then from there, I could actually go through and I could post my invoice. So that's how approvals work in Business Central. I set that up through the purchase invoices, through a purchase invoice. So you could do this on, you could do this by dollar amount. You could say anything that is a large purchase above maybe a certain dollar amount, I could set up an approval for that. I could do it by department or by a specific dimension, right? I could do this for a large payment on my payment journal. I could do it there. So there's a number of different ways that I can set up approvals. So I know that I just went through a lot of concepts. I just went through workflow approvals and purchase invoicing. Are there any questions on either of those areas?
Hey, Margo, I have a quick question, or kind of going back. So can this system house like actual vendor invoices that you can upload into the system and then you can redirect it to various approvers to approve and have different criteria, like if it's over a certain dollar amount, it needs a secondary approval?
Yes, that's a great question. Yes, so if I wanted to download, like I wanted to upload a document, I could upload like a vendor PDF invoice. I could certainly do that. And that's a great question. I'll actually show it to you. So, and yes, to your other question too. So I'll go to workflows to kind of show you how that setup works. So I have my purchase invoice approval turned on. And the way that I have mine set up is just any purchase invoice, but I don't have to do it that way. So I could do it above a certain dollar amount, and I'll click edit here. I could do it if it goes above a certain dollar amount. I could do it for specific vendors. So yes, just really just showing you that it could go to a specific dollar amount. And then also it could go to an approver chain. So I could say, based on my approval setup, if it's above $1,000, it goes to this person. If it's above $5,000, it has to go to this person. So I can do it through a chain. I could do it through like an approver group if it could go through to a group of people. But yes, I can say if it's above this dollar amount, it has to go to up to a higher authority. Any other questions?
I have a question, and maybe you're going to get to it at some point. One important feature that we're looking at, because we're looking to have multiple divisions and then rolling up to a holding company, is that we want to see if at the vendor level, if there's the ability to have allocations so that it can be allocated, say it's a wholesale retail kind of a division split, that we want to have a portion of it go to the retail and a portion go to the wholesale without having to manually do that. Is there some
Great
automated?
question. Yes. Okay. So I love that question. I actually have an invoice set up similar to that. It's by department, so it's not by, I think, wait, was yours by channel or what was yours by?
Just if you have, I mean, you're gonna have two separate companies, two subsidiaries, and then you're gonna have a holding company.
Yes. Okay. So I
So-
don't have an example. Yes, by entity, right? So yes, I could do that too. And I'll kind of come here. I have one example. 81. So okay, so yes, good question. Yes, so there is an intercompany module in Business Central. So if I had an invoice, I could have this coded to a specific intercompany partner. So I could have, if this was $3,000, I could say maybe $1,500 of it is for the company I'm currently in, and the other one is for for example, like my Canadian intercompany partner. So yes, I could do that, and then I could post it in this specific company, and then I could go and like approve it or post it in the other company too. So yes, I can do it by entity. Yes, so yes to that question. And then as far as allocations go, actually, I'll pause. Did that answer your question fully?
Well, I guess one of the questions I would have is that something that you can set up? I guess what I'm trying to do is think about having, if my AP person who is going to be entering these invoices in doesn't have to analyze whether or not it's supposed to be a split, that it's automatically known that it's a split. Is there a way to set that at the vendor level, saying that this vendor is always going to be a 50-50, 60-40? Can you have that already preset?
But I'll just have to check to be 100% sure.
All right, I appreciate it.
Yep. Perfect. All right. And then as far as other sort of allocations within one company, right? So I do have another purchase invoice example set up where this is a rent expense and I'm coding it to multiple departments. So I'll come into a different allocation. So I have an allocation account in this instance set up to by number of employees in each department. So I can also set that up to say, okay, I have my admin department, my IT, production, and sales departments. And I can actually test this allocation. So I can say, if I'm allocating $1,000, how is this going to split and allocate the costs by department? So I can actually see the percentage and then the dollar amount breakdown. So that I actually have these allocation accounts set up. So I can do that. And then if I have this coded on an invoice now, it's for $3,000 instead of 1,000. And then very, very similarly, I can do a preview post. And I can go to my GL entries to see, okay, yes, it's actually doing that breakout. The amounts are getting coded separately to different departments. Any questions regarding allocations? And that's based on statistical accounts. I could do it based on fixed accounts. I don't have to do it based on like a statistical account. I could do it like fixed every time.
As far as allocations in the GL itself, is that something that, I mean, I'm assuming that can be done as well, where you can pick a specific GL account, we can just say rent.
Yes.
If that's something that can be set to auto as well, or is that gonna have to be?
Yep, no, you're completely correct. So yes, instead of inheriting from whichever account I've coded it to, I could do it for a specific account as well. Good point. Yep, good question. Okay. Perfect. All right. And then my last AP thing to show really is the payment journal. So as far as paying vendors, there's a number of ways that I could do this in Business Central. I could do a pick and choose for my vendor ledger entries, or I could have the system tell me what I should pay. So I'm going to show that because I think it's kind of nifty. So I'll go to my payment journal. In here, I can have multiple batches. So based on what I'm doing, so if I'm doing an ACH run or a check run, I can do that in one batch. I think it's just makes it a little bit easier, a little bit faster. So I'm going to have the system calculate what I should pay. So I'll come here to suggest vendor payments, and I'll do it based on everything that's due up to today's date. So that's gonna be my last payment date. I can summarize per vendor, or if I wanted to see it broken out by invoice, I could do it at that level too. And I'm filtering it by my payment method code, so by check. So every vendor that I pay using checks, we're gonna do a check run. I could do an ACH run if I wanted to too. There's a number of ways I could do this, but I'm doing a check run today, and I can actually just have the system calculate that for me. Okay. So here looks like there are 3 vendors that we should be paying via check. This one, I'll actually just code this in if I want to say, yep, I'm actually paying them by check. Here, I could just come over here. I'm just gonna manually code in that this is a computer check. I know there's a way to default this in too. But I could do that. And then if I wanted to actually print the checks directly from Business Central, I could definitely do that. So I'll print my check. I could do a preview print. I could do a test print, but in this case, I'll just go ahead and I'll print them. And this is something too that we're modifying these like for every customer, right? Because this is no one's check format, right? So here, so it could be check stub check, it could be stub check, it could be whatever your format is. We can print your micro line if that's something you need to. If you need like signatures above certain dollar amounts, we can support that too. So our developers are constantly just updating these check reports to be what your requirements are, right? So that's my last sort of, I print my check and then I just post my payment. So pretty straightforward as far as payments. I could also do a click and choose, and then I could populate this payment journal from my vendor ledger entries as well.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
We pay a good portion of our vendors by ACH. So right now we're manually having to go into the bank and, create one for each vendor. Is there the ability to do like the NACHA file or whatever that can be exported out of Business Central and that can then be imported into the bank?
Yes, and it's exactly the way you just asked too. So we would ask you guys to get the NACHA format from your bank. We would format it for you. And then you guys would do like a test import and to your bank and say, hey, this is a test. Does this match your formatting requirements? And then the bank says, yes, this went through, or no, it didn't. So yes, there's a bank export option as well if these were ACH payments. And yes, I could just export the NACHA file directly through the payment journal as well.
Okay, and to go along with that, what we currently do is we then have to individually email the remittance to our vendor so that they know what the amount to expect, as well as the individual invoices that are being paid. Is that something that we have the ability to pull out as well?
Yes, okay. There's also a send remittance advice option too, so you could email those out to your vendors as well.
Fantastic, thank you.
Good questions. Great, perfect. That was the last thing I had to show on the AP side of things. I'll kind of ask Addie and Kaden, do I have time to show bank account reconciliations?
I vote yes, but I guess I would also check with the audience. Does the audience want to see?
Do we want to see bank recs?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes, then let's do it. Yeah,
Perfect.
Absolutely.
In that case, I will show it with Copilot. I think it's nifty. I'll go to my global search and I'll just look for, bank account rec. So here, there's a few things I could do. So I could use a bank feed. I don't have a bank linked for demo purposes, right? But you could link your bank account, or you could import a CSV file. So I'm importing a CSV file. You certainly can link your bank automatically. So I'll import a transaction. I'll do my CSV file and I'll generate this. So Business Central will match and Copilot will match. As we can see, Business Central auto matched 6 of my 7 lines. So Business Central is good at matching when the descriptions and the dollar amounts match. Copilot's good at matching when I have that same kind of bank lump sum payment. So Copilot's great at parsing through my bank ledger entries and saying, hey, which payments matched up if I have like a one-to-many relationship there. So I'll keep it and we can kind of look at the bank rec. So over on my left, this is from my bank. So this would be my bank file import or my bank feed. And then over on the right, these are my bank account ledger entries inside of Business Central. So green means they've been auto matched. So obviously I want everything to be green. And then I can see my total outstanding. So it looks like I'm probably missing a lot from my bank statement lines in this specific scenario. But green means it's automatically been matched. And then once I match them, my last step really is just to post my bank rec. Any questions there? Great. Any questions on anything that we have gone through today, or anything else that anyone else wants to see?
Really open up a can of worms there, Margo.
Yeah, anything. Yeah, that was maybe a little too open, but perfect.
In the old system, there used to be like smart lists and things like that. Is there similar options to create customized reports, like GL detail reports?
Yeah. So are you on GP?
Yes. Yep.
Yep. Good. Yeah, I do get the smart. So that's kind of just like that's not like an add-on in Business Central. So if I go to for example, my general ledger entries, I forgot to put a space there. But yes, so if I wanted to create custom views on my GL entries, so here maybe I just want to see my 2024 expenses. So yes, I can set up filters by yes, I can set up filters and set up different views and save them in Business Central as a filter instead of through like a smart list add-on.
Okay.
Yep, a good question.